There has been a significant shift in the preparedness community towards being a prepared citizen or a Minuteman of sorts, more so than just being a prepared civilian. And there's a lot of reasons why that's happening. And I do think that it's a good thing based on what's happening right now around the world. And we need to be paying attention to the information, the tactics, and the equipment that's being presented to us by those with that experience, because I think it's going to become more and more important as time goes on. Look, knowing that you need to be self-reliant is obviously a good first step, but self-reliance is very dangerous in many ways. And as we all know, you have to trade your security for freedom. Well, life is becoming less and less secure every single day. And if you want to maintain that freedom, that security is definitely no longer guaranteed. So why is this shift happening? You see it all over the social media. You go on Instagram, YouTube, anywhere. If you watch gun channels at all, if you watch tactics channels, comms channels, anybody who's trying to put out any type of OSINT, right? People are concerned about the direction things are going. And people are worried about the way the world is starting to work in the sense of these nuclear superpowers pushing the envelope. And we also have a modern conflict going on in Eastern Europe right now, which just shows how important it is for the average civilian, which many of us need to make sure we maintain the status of citizen, right? It shows just how important some of that training and some of those tactics and some of that equipment can be in a very devastating scenario that unfolded upon those people almost overnight, right? So why is this happening? Well, here's some thoughts for you. I just want you to kind of consider this, okay? Especially people in this community, which generally tend to be American patriots or people who want to be left alone, or at least people who try to take matters into their own hands as much as possible, understanding that there is no safety net, right? This community has been abandoned by many of our institutions that are supposed to protect us and make sure that we can progress in a very prosperous manner as a country. These institutions include the federal government. They've abandoned us. They're not here to protect us. They don't care about how we feel in the sense of voting or taxes or regulations regarding what you do with your land or what you do in the sense of acquiring equipment to protect yourself or anything related to that. They've abandoned you. So has the mainstream media. The news media has abandoned you as well. I get better information from random guys on the internet than I get from any mainstream media source at this point in time. And it's because they don't care about you anymore. And when I say you, I mean you specifically, you here in this community, someone who wants to be a prepared citizen, not these people that live in, urban environments and spend their entire day sucked into a cell phone thinking about what they're gonna watch on Bravo next, right? Like, this is not the demographic they care about any longer. So we've been abandoned in that regard. We've also been abandoned by pop culture. They don't care about us anymore either, right? And of course, it's affecting them to a degree. People are losing money, businesses are going under. But you can see that that's not stopping this machine from moving forward, which is why you should be really concerned about the direction we're heading in. Because even though these consequences are obvious, these consequences are clear, the companies aren't going to change direction. There is an eventual end goal that we're headed towards. And you need to be ready for that time. Because by establishing those communities and those networks and getting the equipment, the training, the skills, and everything else you need to be that self-sufficient community, not just a solo lone wolf, but community of people that can at least organize to a degree and protect each other, is going to become more and more important. And I think that's why we're seeing this shift. And we're talking like a pretty extreme shift. We're no longer talking about like, hey, check out this new 9mm, right? We're talking about like, hey, how do you use a drone in a surveillance or search and rescue type scenario where you no longer have access to any type of infrastructure, right? I mean, we're talking about some pretty niche things that are coming out in the community that I think are valuable and important. But there's reasons for why these shifts are happening. And you need to, at least in my opinion, get on board with some of this information and get on board with some of these concepts, because the world's becoming more and more dangerous every day. And when I say dangerous, I don't always mean imminent danger or harm to you as a person. What I mean is dangerous in the sense of not knowing right from wrong, not understanding what's real or what's fake, not being able to discern between good and evil, right? Like, these things are becoming more and more dangerous every single day. And we have all types of news just blasting us from all sides on every possible situation that you could have ever been concerned about as a prepared person, right? I mean, the fact that we can go from volcanic eruptions to World War III to contagions all the way to extraterrestrials in a single news cycle of 24 hours shows you just how catastrophic the direction we're going in is taking us, right? So I want to have this conversation because I think there is some vitriol and maybe some backlash to the way things are going in the preparedness community. I think that people aren't necessarily fully keyed into why this is happening or necessarily sold on the idea of it all. But I think the more you pay attention and the more you realize why these things are becoming more popularized and why these things are becoming more proliferate here in the community, I think you will understand why it's becoming more of a priority for you as well. And that's just my opinion, and I wanted to share that because as I'm building more networks here where I live, and I'm building more plans in the sense of how things would go down at post a grid down or post SHTF scenario, you realize that there's more people out there like you than you thought, and that more people are tuned into this kind of mantra of the prepared citizen or the Minuteman than you originally realized. And if we want this country to continue, we want the United States of America to progress in a prosperous and healthy way, it's really going to fall onto the shoulders of people like ourselves here in this community to keep things going after the fact. Because at this point in time, I don't have a lot of faith in these institutions that have literally abandoned us to do anything positive moving forward. And look, this applies, I'm not a hardcore ideologue. This applies to both sides of the aisle, all ideologies. If you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of it all, it's just money. I don't know what else to say. If money's involved, you can't fully trust the direction that those representatives are going in. And it's pretty clear based on some of the recent events we've had happen here from the federal government, quite frankly, against the people. And that's just where we're at. So I want to have this conversation. What do you think about this transition? What do you think about this significant shift in the preparedness community towards this more prepared citizen or Minuteman style of concept versus just being someone who's worried about surviving an earthquake, right? I think it's becoming more important. I think it's beneficial in many ways, because if the threats we face require that type of mentality, you can't create that mentality in the heat of the moment. You have to understand some of these skills and tactics and information and everything else related to it before that time comes. So at some point in time, I'll be demoing more things here on the channel related to that concept. And I also will still put out the usual information I try to put out here related to everything else preparedness wise, because all that's still important as well. I'm not trying to downplay anything else that we have going on here, right? Food, natural disasters, everything else related to staying alive is still important. But I think that this shift has become almost a necessary one based on where things are going. And I wish I didn't have to say that, because in all honesty, I don't like where things are going. And that's just me, right? And we are finding ourselves getting closer and closer to a line in the sand that I think a lot of people aren't willing to cross. And that line in the sand is what we do for our next generation, is what we do to make sure our children are taken care of and that our children are protected from some of these dangers and some of these evils that are out there, not only in the United States, but all over the world at this point. And I'll let you know one thing about myself is that I'm not putting up with anything that puts my children in any kind of compromising situation. Just gonna throw that out there. You guys know what to do if you want to support the channel, magicprepper.com. Listen, Midway USA, they are the biggest supporter of the channel, and I always have to thank them for doing what they do for me here, because without their help, I wouldn't be able to get into some of this information regarding the prepared citizen or the Minuteman or anything else related to that, as well as I can, thanks to their support. So Midway USA, if you're looking for anything related to what a prepared citizen might need, never a bad idea to check out what they've got for you. And honestly, Subscribestar, it's $5 a month. Try to do good preparedness incentives and take care of people there as well. If that's something you're into and you want to have, private chats and just hang out and discuss whatever else might be more important to you, please feel free to join that. And it does help offset some of the costs of doing things that I do here on the channel. So look, at the end of the day, do what you need to do to take care of you and your family. But I think that this shift is a necessary one. And I'll just say up front, I wish it wasn't, because everything related to it is difficult, complicated, and a huge learning curve for somebody like myself that has none of that prior experience. But I'm gonna do it anyway, because that's just where we're at.